We start the discussion about FastAPI. So, to start with, why do we need any kind of a web server? There's two reasons. One, these web pages need to come from somewhere. Now, you can use Nginx, you can use Apache, you can use Tomcat, you can use. I've written web servers in Rust to handle this. You can use any number of them. They're all fine. Django and Flask are popular. WordPress is popular. There's lots of tools for serving up web pages. My concern is simplicity and also the fact that a lot of these frameworks allow you to, they try and be very smart, very easy to use. So you can have, you can run code inside these web pages, for example. You can get them to do more than just serve up web pages. That's a problem. So I prefer, like when I work in Java, I prefer something like Netty or Jetty where my web server is built into my application and it only can do what I tell it to do. So for me, FastAPI becomes an easy way to do that. FastAPI is all it does is what I tell it to do. So if we go look at an example here, for example, make it a little bit bigger. So I have a whole bunch of things I bring in for it, but we'll talk about CORS in a moment. But basically, for example, if I wanted, I mount the static. So if I put in /static on my files, like static / script.js, it knows to go look in the static directory and just serve up that page. I could put in some more intelligence so that it can't, if someone tries to go change directories, for example, and restrict it, I could put that in there, for example. Um, and then, so this is how, if you're calling it, if you call my web server with nothing else, then it will return just the index.html page. And it just reads it in and it sends it out. It doesn't do anything else. By default, it's very dumb, I guess. And then the index.html page will actually have, like I said, for CSS and the JavaScript, it'll have /static/ and then a file path. So that way it knows where to go, and it actually goes to this directory here. So you can see the 3 files. So that's the reason why I do that. Why I use FastAPI, because it's a much lighter way to have web services. And then what it gives me the ability to do is, for example, if I want to get information about sessions, I just call the API sessions service and it can return it. So this is the real purpose of it, is this. So I can have lots of different web services and it can take care of processing them. Now, one thing that you'll see, if you, in this case, like I said before, this is a very simple, I only have one web server. It's a moderately simple application, actually. If I go to something like this, which is, actually that one's probably too complicated to jump to right now. We'll go to this one here. So this is a multi-language document processing. So this processes lots of different things. And but what it does is it's like a really, really large RAG system. But can handle it can handle much more complex types of documents. We'll be talking about this later. But see where my agents are. Okay, so I have my app, I have this. Oh, actually, this one doesn't have, that's right, this one's the same way. It's basically one large flow. Oops. Okay, so we'll go look at um, the founder one. Actually, how about strategy planner also is that way. So I don't always follow the same approach for every application, mainly because they all will be different. Um, so for example, this one has agent service. Okay, so I have an agent, I have an MCP server that's also using FastAPI, and then I have the main application, main.py. So they all use the same thing. Now the difference is that they all run on different ports. Why this is important is because this serves up the web page. Now, if the web page is going to try and call this for some reason, then it's not going to be able to. The browser will block it because it's on a different port. So something called CORS, which is cross-origin resource sharing. If your file comes from myapp.com slash and port 8080, for example, and then you want to call a web service on port 8081, even though you're going to the same web server, the browser will say, oh, this is a different place, and it will block it unless the application on port 8081 gives a permission to connect. This is done to protect web servers from getting spammed or getting attacked by other pages in applications. So it's a security feature, and you want it, but it's a pain to deal with. So what you do is you would use, in this case, we use add middleware, and then I add the CORS middleware. Now in my case, because I'm running this locally, I just allow any origin, any methods, any headers. You can limit them. So you can sit there and say, okay, well, I know I only want it to come from a particular place or a particular subnet or something. You can limit where the origins are coming from if you want. You can limit which methods they call, different headers. So you have a lot of control over it. Now, I'm not a FastAPI expert. There's a lot of capability in FastAPI I don't use. And I'll try and point out as I learn new features as I need them. I do enough for what I want to do. So you probably find videos where people do deep dives into FastAPI and learn a lot more. My goal is to try and give you enough information so that you can then start to build your own applications. So you notice here I'm using app FastAPI. And then here I start to add services to it. So this is their API gateway version. So as a general rule, I tend to add my web services at the bottom, so that everything they call is above it. That's just the way I do it. But and then I like to say API slash just because it's nice to try and organize things. But you can have post, you can have delete, get, put, the different verbs. But this is their API gateway approach. And so all it's going to do is when a request comes in, it looks and it says, okay, well, what matches this? And then it calls it. And if you don't have a lot of different services, this is generally good enough. Okay? But if you have a ton of services, like here, so now in this one, I actually use their router, and trying to see where it is at the moment. Oh, routes. Okay. So I use API router. The reason being because you see all these different files to try and keep them organized. It by using the routes, it's a more advanced way of being able to organize your services. So they're all in their own little world, I guess. They're isolated from each other. And I don't have to worry so much about did I use the same name in different places. So this is purely for organizing. And if you have a lot of services, then you would want to look at the router option. But this one's far more advanced. We much later from now we'll talk about more about blockchains and all that. But I thought this is one of the few times where I've actually used this kind of approach. And so to do this, to use FastAPI is actually pretty easy. You just download FastAPI. So pip install FastAPI. I use Unicorn often. And Unicorn, because otherwise, if you don't, then you have to tell it what port, and the startup is more complicated. If you use Unicorn, then at the bottom where you have your main, you just say import Unicorn and say Unicorn run, and then you tell it what port. Nice and easy. And then it will actually go and find the app and run it, and all is good with the world. So that's what I tend to do. You'll see also that I tend to have a health check. If you want to get fancy, then you can also check your health check and go check like with your LLM, or go check with your database. Check with whatever with other servers that you communicate with. In this case, I don't, but in a production system, you would probably actually want to have it check the other services that it depends on and make certain they're also healthy. So you could have it could spread out, but you want to know quickly if something is down. So if something 3 web services away from this one is down, I may want to know, but I won't know directly because I call that health check will check another one. And they'll say, oh, I'm not healthy because this service is down. And then your monitoring could quickly pick up on something is down. So you can make this a lot more complex. I'm keeping it simple right now because, and like I said, I'll have other different presentation talking about how do we move this stuff to production, or how do we move it into more of a test. So that's a whole different area. So as a general rule, you should try and follow the REST approach. So get is when you're trying to just look up information. I want to get a list of all the companies, for example. That's just a get. If you're creating a new company, a new workflows or whatever, if you're doing some sort of creation initially, then you would use a post call. So post is going to create something new. It's not necessarily check and see, oh, does it already exist, and let me update it. So, and then if you're updating a record, you would use a put call. And then delete is just if you want to delete that record. There's a couple others, but those are the 4 main ones that you'll encounter. And they refer to them as CRUD. Create, read, update, delete operations. So, but that's basically, um, then you can see like I tend to return errors, and you can return a lot of different types of errors. Um, I like, because I'm more of a dog person, if you want to look up HTTP status dogs, you can get to a good website and they'll explain to you about all the different error status codes for a request and a little picture and explanation of what they mean. So, so if someone passes in a something that's formed incorrectly, or there's certain things that are required that they didn't call, then you'll want to return an error. That's relative. That's going to tell their application or tell them what they did wrong. So you try and figure out what's the closest error I have to what they're doing. Um, that's basically it, really. You can also tie us in with some documentation software too, and I might have to find it. Probably in the next video, I'll probably show you a brief thing of what that looks like. I did it somewhere. I don't do it too often, but I did do it somewhere, where you could actually go and look up documentation. Um, but other than that, that's about it. So nice short video, but I tend to use FastAPI because I find it to be safer and it's easier to just spin up and to have it serve. All it's really going to be doing is handling web service calls. It's not doing anything fancy, and it's not supposed to. I want simplicity at its finest for my web server. So thank you very much.